The knocking started at 12:14 a.m. 3 sharp hits against the apartment door, then silence. Marcus Hill froze in the middle of folding laundry, one of his daughter's tiny pink socks still hanging from his fingers. His heart immediately jumped to the worst possibilities. Nobody knocked on doors after midnight unless something had gone terribly wrong, especially not in his neighborhood, especially not when you were already 3 months behind on rent. Another knock came, slower this time. "Daddy?" A sleepy voice whispered from the hallway. Marcus turned quickly. "Go back to bed, Ava." His 8-year-old daughter stood rubbing her eyes, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd carried everywhere since her mother died 4 years earlier. Her curls were flattened on one side from sleep, and the oversized t-shirt she wore nearly swallowed her whole. The sight of her softened the panic rising in his chest. "It's okay," he lied gently. "Probably someone at the wrong apartment." But even he didn't believe it. Marcus walked quietly toward the door, careful not to let the old floorboards creak. The apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom, peeling paint, radiator that barely worked in winter, but it was home, or at least the closest thing to one. He checked the clock again. 12:15 a.m.? Nobody decent came around at this hour. He looked through the peephole and nearly stopped breathing. Standing outside was Eleanor Brooks, his boss, CEO of Brooks & Rowe Consulting, the same woman who ran the most demanding financial firm in downtown Chicago, the same woman who terrified entire boardrooms without raising her voice. And somehow, impossibly, she was standing outside his apartment building wearing a dark wool coat, her silver hair pulled back loosely, snow collecting on her shoulders. Marcus opened the door halfway, confused beyond words. "Miss Brooks?" She looked up at him, her expression unreadable at first. Then her eyes drifted past him toward the apartment behind him. "I'm sorry for coming this late," she said quietly. "May I come in?" Marcus blinked. His brain scrambled for explanations. Had he made a mistake at work? Was he being fired? Had something happened to a client account? Of course, he managed. The moment she stepped inside, Marcus became painfully aware of everything wrong with the apartment. The flickering kitchen light, the patched couch, the water stain spreading across the ceiling. Ava peeked around the corner again, studying the stranger cautiously. Eleanor's face softened immediately. "And who's this?" she asked. Ava hid halfway behind Marcus's leg. "My daughter," Marcus said. "Ava." Eleanor crouched slightly despite the elegance of her coat. "It's nice to meet you, Ava." Ava nodded shyly. Marcus motioned awkwardly toward the couch. "I'm sorry the place is—" "Don't apologize," Eleanor interrupted. And somehow the way she said it made him stop talking. She sat carefully on the old couch while Marcus remained standing, nerves tightening in his stomach. For 2 years, he had worked 80-hour weeks under this woman. He knew her as brilliant, composed, relentless. Employees whispered stories about her impossible standards. But tonight she looked tired, human. Her eyes moved around the apartment, again before settling on the children's drawings taped crookedly to the wall. "You stayed late tonight," she said softly. Marcus frowned. "At the office? I saw you leave at almost 10. "Oh," he shrugged. "Quarter-end reports. You're always the last one there." He gave a small laugh. "Somebody has to be." But Eleanor didn't smile. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I found this in the copier room." Marcus took it carefully. The moment he saw the overdue notice from his landlord, his stomach dropped. Final warning before eviction. Heat crawled up his neck instantly. "I can explain." "You don't owe me an explanation." The humiliation hit harder than he expected. Marcus worked harder than almost anyone in that building. He never complained, never asked for favors, never missed deadlines. And still, every month felt like drowning 1 inch at a time. "I didn't mean for anyone to see that," he said quietly. Eleanor studied him for a long moment. "Why didn't you tell anyone you were struggling?" Marcus almost laughed at the question. Because struggling was normal. Because people didn't care. Because ever since his wife Lena died from a sudden brain aneurysm, life had become a non-stop exercise in survival. "You don't bring personal problems into work," he answered simply. Something flickered in Eleanor's expression then. Regret, maybe. Ava climbed onto the couch beside Eleanor without warning, holding up her stuffed rabbit. "This is Mr. Buttons." Marcus nearly apologized again, but Eleanor surprised him by taking the rabbit gently. "Well, she said seriously to the toy. "It's an honor to meet you." Ava giggled for the first time all night. The sound filled the apartment like warmth, and Marcus realized suddenly how long it had been since laughter lived easily in these walls. Eleanor looked toward the kitchen counter where unopened bills sat, beside a half-empty loaf of bread. "When was the last time you slept properly?" she asked. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "I don't know." "When was the last time you ate properly?" He didn't answer, because the truth was simple. Most nights he made sure Ava had enough first. That was the job. That was fatherhood. Eleanor leaned back slowly, eyes distant now. "My father worked 3 jobs when I was little," she said quietly. "Factory during the day, gas station at night, janitor on weekends." Marcus stayed silent. "He used to skip meals so my sister and I wouldn't notice we were poor." Ava listened curiously, still hugging her rabbit. "One winter," Eleanor continued, "our electricity got shut off 2 weeks before Christmas." Her voice carried no self-pity. "Just memory. And then?" Ava asked softly. Eleanor smiled faintly. "A neighbor showed up with extension cords running from her apartment. Said nobody's children should sleep cold." The room fell quiet. Snow tapped lightly against the window. Marcus suddenly understood this visit wasn't about work at all. Eleanor reached into her purse again and slid an envelope onto the coffee table. Marcus frowned. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a cashier's check. $10,000. Marcus stared at the number, certain he'd read it wrong. His mouth went dry. "I can't accept this." "Yes, you can." "No." He pushed it back immediately. "Absolutely not. It's not charity." "It feels like charity." Eleanor's gaze held steady. "Then think of it as repayment." "For what?" "For every night you stayed late, helping keep my company afloat while pretending your entire life wasn't falling apart." Marcus swallowed hard. "You earned that money long ago." Emotion climbed unexpectedly into his throat, sharp and unbearable. Nobody had said something kind to him in so long that he almost didn't know how to handle it. "I don't want special treatment." "This isn't special treatment," Eleanor replied firmly. "This is one human being refusing to let another drown." Ava looked between them, confused but hopeful. Marcus blinked rapidly, embarrassed by the sting in his eyes. "You barely know me." Eleanor gave a sad smile. "I know enough." She glanced again at the apartment, the worn furniture, the carefully folded school uniforms, the exhaustion Marcus carried like a second skin. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Marcus, the world has enough people who walk past suffering and call it professionalism." Her voice trembled slightly now. "I buried my husband 15 years ago. And do you know what I remember most?" Marcus shook his head. "Not the flowers, not the speeches. I remember the people who quietly showed up afterward, the ones who brought groceries, the ones who sat with me when the house felt unbearably empty." Tears filled her eyes for the first time. "Success means nothing if you lose your humanity on the way there." The room went completely still. Marcus felt something inside him crack open then, not weakness but relief. The kind that comes when someone finally sees the weight you've been carrying alone. Ava slid off the couch and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Daddy cries sometimes," she whispered matter-of-factly to Eleanor. "Mostly when he thinks I'm asleep." Marcus let out a broken laugh through his tears. Eleanor stood slowly adjusting her coat. "One more thing," she said. Marcus wiped his face quickly. "You're getting a promotion." His head snapped up. "What?" "You've been doing the work of a senior operations manager for over a year." She tilted her head slightly. "Frankly, my leadership team overlooked you because you never demanded attention." Marcus stared at her, speechless. "The raise starts immediately," she continued, "and the position comes with remote flexibility." His knees nearly gave out. Remote flexibility. That meant mornings with Ava. School pickups. Dinner at normal hours. A life. "Why?" he whispered. Eleanor looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because good people shouldn't have to break themselves just to survive." No one spoke for a moment after that. Then Ava tugged Eleanor's sleeve gently. "Are you rich?" Marcus nearly died of embarrassment. But Eleanor laughed, a real laugh this time. "Yes," she admitted. Ava considered this carefully. "Then maybe you were supposed to come here." Eleanor's expression softened instantly. "Maybe I was." Outside, snow continued falling quietly across the sleeping city. Inside that tiny apartment, something shifted. Not magically, not perfectly. The bills didn't disappear overnight. Grief didn't vanish. Life would still be hard sometimes. But for the first time in years, Marcus no longer felt invisible. And as Eleanor stepped toward the door, she paused one final time. "Mr. Buttons," she said solemnly to the stuffed rabbit, "take good care of this family." Ava grinned. "I will," she answered for him. And after the door closed behind Eleanor Brooks, Marcus stood in the middle of his small apartment holding his daughter close, realizing that sometimes the thing that changes your life isn't money. It's being reminded that kindness still exists in the world, especially when you need it most.